Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the first chapter of class 12 that talks about variations in psychological attributes. Now, first we need to understand the concept of individual differences, which says distinctiveness and variations among the people's characteristics and different behavior patterns. We are going to talk about how we all are being very unique in our own characteristic and features and which makes us very different from each other. Each individual is going to have a different personality traits, different characteristic features that defines them, due to which we say that we all being very much distinct from each other. Now we are going to move on the different approaches of intelligence. The majorly the whole chapter is going to talk about the two major approaches. The first one is a psychometric approach and another one is an information processing approach. Moving on to the few different approaches that can be definable in psychological terms. The first one is the trait approach. Now, trait approach talks about the personality trait due to which there is a change in the behavior. Now, situationism is another factor that becomes a part of the trait approach, which says that our trait is totally being influenced upon the situation or the circumstances that we are going to face. So, our behavior patterns are directly or indirectly being responsible enough for the situations or the circumstances that we are going to deal with. जैसी situation मिलेगी वैसा मेरा behavior pattern आएगा. My behavior pattern is totally dependent upon my circumstance. That makes it as an external factor. Okay, now moving on further, we are going to talk about the assessments, the tools of assessment that can be used for understanding the intelligence. Now, the first way of assessment can be the formal or the informal. The formal assessment says that it could be systematic, it could be organized so that we could able to use different tools. It can be intelligence test, it can be personality test, it can be aptitude test that can be used for the assessment by the various psychologists to conduct or to assess an individual. Next would be the informal assessment. Informal assessment will be very subjective in nature. It will can be having a very subjective biasness. It can be one to one. It can be done in any of the ways where subjective interpretation will play a major role. Subjective interpretation means my own perception or the interpretation, how I'm going to work with the assessment. Next is attributes. Now we are going to talk about the definition of word attribute. Attribute word talks about assessment that is going to depend upon a particular purpose for which we need to conduct an assessment. For example, I would like to conduct the intelligence test. So would like to know that what are the different intellectual functionality or the cognitive deficits that I would like to look across while conducting the intelligence test. So, for example, it says the improvement of a weak student, intellectual strength and the weaknesses are to be measured. So, either I could talk about the strengths of a child on the basis of which intelligence can be looked upon, or the weaknesses so that we could able to work on the improvement for the performance. Now there are few other attributes of psychological tools or the psychological functioning that we need to understand. The first major is the intelligence. So we will be going through the meaning of intelligence in a very layman's term, which says that the global capacity to understand the world, think rationally, and use available resources effectively when faced with challenges. So, intelligence is going to talk about my way of looking across the world, how I'm going to look across the world, how I'm going to think different aspects rationally, irrationally, how I'm going to work with the different challenges, how I'm going to face those challenges. This is what the intelligence talks about in a very layman's term. Okay, next is the aptitude. Now, aptitude talks about the potentialities or the capabilities that an individual is going to have or they are going to acquire. There are few skills that we are being inborn with, there are innate, and there are other few skills that we are going to acquire from the outside world. So, aptitude makes us our potentialities and the talent on the basis of which we could able to work across. Now interest. Now interest refers to my areas where I would like to work across, where I want to excel. So there can be few specific areas where I am interested to work across, which makes me comfortable enough, that gives me a pleasure, that makes me strong enough so that I've been connected with that particular subject area. Next is personality. So when we are going to talk about the personality, we are going to talk about few specific enduring characteristics that makes me different from another. वो specific feature जो मेरा है, मेरा characteristic, जो मुझे मेरे से दूसरे लोगों से बहुत अलग बनाता है, that makes us very distinct from other individual. Now values. Now values talks about the ideal way of behaving, which says my specific belief system that helps me out to form my behavior. That is the ideal mode of behavior. Now, ideal mode of behavior is totally based upon my strong belief system. The belief system that I am going to carry away, that belief system makes my ideal mode of behavior. Now, there are few another assessment methods that we need to talk about. The first one is a psychological test. Now, psychological test, there is a definition of psychological test that you need to study and learn over here. The definition says objective and standardized measure of an individual's mental or behavioral characteristics. In class 11th also, we have talked about the characteristics of the psychological tool. That is, it should be reliable, it should be standardized, it should be valid, and it should be objectified in nature, which is going to work across two major domains, that is the individual's mental and the behavior characteristics. Next is the interview. Interview talks about the information that we are going to gain on one-to-one basis. Case study. Case study is going to talk about the in-depth study of an individual where different psychological attributes can be looked across. Either we have been talking about the physiological history, we are going to talk about the demographic history, or we have been talking about the different psychosocial and the physical environmental characteristics on the basis of which we are gaining the information. So in the case study, we are going to gain a lot much information about a person. It can be done in different ways, or different tools can be used to conduct a case study. Case study along with a psychological tool, along with any other method of research, can be taken up so that we could able to work to gather the in-depth information about an individual while we are working with a case study. Next is the observation. Observation is another method of tool that is to be used for gaining the information. Now, observation, as we have already studied in class 11th, the types of observation. But here, in general, we are going to talk about observation as a method that can be used where we are going to work with gaining the information so that we could able to work across with the objectified nature or the objectified procedure that is to be followed. Now, there are few basic advantages and disadvantages of conducting the observational method. The first disadvantage, it says that the observation has a little control over the situation. Definitely, subjective biasness is one of the major disadvantage that will come across while we are working with observational method, where observer will only able to record and able to see whatever is to be done by the participants. So we could not able to manipulate, we could not able to change, we could not able to modify or bring about any changes while working with the observational method. Now reports will be very subjective in nature. Whatever I am going to watch, it will be interpreted and is to be perceived as per my own understanding. So there can be lapses while we are working with the recording of the observational method. Last one is the self-report measures. Now, self-report measures talks about when a person is going to provide a information about their own self, where I am going to know across few things that I am not aware of, but the things or the information lies with me. It can be my strong belief system, it can be my opinions, it can be my interpretations, it can be my suggestions. Anything that is being related to my own self will turn out to be a part of my self reporting measures. So, self reporting measures can be worked by conducting various interview schedules, by having questionnaires, by conducting the psychological test, or maybe writing the daily diary that belongs to me only. This is how we could able to gather the information about the self-reporting as a tool of psychological attributes. Thank you.